Welcome everyone to another session of Just Me, and I'm joined today by Dr. Leanne Armitage, who I've got to say is just, I mean, we were just talking just now, and Leanne, you're amazing, seriously. So I don't want to ask you any other questions other than the ones I'm obviously going to now. But so, who are you, and what do you do? And tell us a little bit about your background,
Sure.
please.
As was already said, my name's Dr. Leanne Armitage. I'm currently a junior doctor working here in Brighton, currently on a psychiatry rotation. Outside of medicine, I'm also very passionate about the issue of diversity on the whole, but more so my work at the moment is focused at increasing diversity across UK medical schools. And so I co-founded a charity while I was at medical school called the Armitage Foundation, which is a charity that's committed to increasing diversity across UK medical schools so
Brilliant.
that students who are coming from underrepresented backgrounds, such as low socioeconomic backgrounds and certain ethnic minorities, have a better chance of being successful medical applicants. And I'm also very passionate about just inspiring people to be their best and to overcome a limiting mindset or any other kind of barriers that people may try to put on them or that people may put on themselves. And I do that mainly through inspirational speaking. And I'm also writing my first book, which will be published very soon. I'm having a birthday book launch on Friday, the 25th of March.
Whoa! And what's the book? Are we allowed to know what it's called?
Yeah, it's called The Power of a Dream.
Wow. And
Yeah.
and give us a little bit of insight into the book.
Sure. So the book is designed to encourage people to dream again if they've lost sight of their dreams. Because, growing up as children, we all have that natural ability to dream, but oftentimes the challenges and complexities of life can make people stop believing in their dreams or just kind of live a life that is not exactly the life that they would otherwise want to live. So it's to encourage people to dream again and to also offer them practical strategies to implement those dreams and to work towards those dreams. And the first part of the book will also share my story just to kind of really inspire people that it doesn't matter what background you come from, you can manifest the dreams that are inside of your heart.
So going back to your childhood, and I know obviously a bit about you, but so what inspired you to become a, because there's no history of doctors in your family,
No,
right? No medical stuff at all.
no.
What inspired you to become a, because
Yeah.
being a doctor is like, that's a lot of training, that's a lot of
Yeah.
kind of footwork, right?
Absolutely. And it's true, there was a strong driving force that gave me such a resilience, such a tenacity, such an unshakable motivation. And that was, I grew up in Peckham in southeast London, where unfortunately it wasn't uncommon to hear young men sadly losing their lives due to gunshot wounds or stab wounds. And I always used to feel grieved when I heard these stories. Um, but there was one particular incident that really changed my life. And I was coming home one day with my sister, and I absolutely love helicopters. And I heard and saw a helicopter that was landing, and I got so excited. And it was landing on this huge grass field in the middle of an estate not far from where I lived. So I asked my sister if we could go and watch the helicopter land. And she agreed, and we traveled over to the scene. And when we arrived, I saw a crowd of people gathered around, and I immediately knew something wasn't right because their facial expressions did not match the excitement that I was feeling inside. And so I turned to the closest person in the crowd, who was a lady, and I asked her, why is everybody gathered here? What's happened? And then she told me a young man had been stabbed. And I just remember going from a state of feeling so excited at the landing of a helicopter to then realizing that, oh my God, this helicopter is landing for no good reason, but rather because a young man's potentially lost his life. And so
Wow.
I went so rapidly from that state of excitement to almost like a state of grief. And I then remember feeling very angry as I looked around, thinking everybody's just standing here watching, but who's actually going to do something to make a difference? And then I felt a sense of disempowerment as I thought, well, what can I do? I'm just a 15-year-old girl. So that evening, I went home with a very heavy heart. And I remember just meditating and praying and crying out to God, asking, what can I do to make a difference? And then the idea came to me that if I aspire to become a trauma surgeon, that would give me a platform to go into environments where young men are involved in knife and gun crime in the hope of inspiring them to be and to do better. So that was literally how my whole journey started. And having such an emotive driving force gave me such strength when I came across challenges and barriers. And it just, when your vision is anchored to something that's bigger than just yourself, it becomes such a powerful driving force because it's no longer just about you, it's about other people as well. So if you give up when you're struggling, if you throw in the towel, you're not the only one that's impacted, it's the other people around you. So that was kind of my mindset, and that helped me to really achieve, I guess, as much as I've achieved thus far.
Wow. So along your journey, and I need to go back to the fact that I mean, you're saying about a psychiatric placement in Brighton. What's
At the
that
moment, that's
at
the
the moment?
rotation I'm on, yeah.
Okay, so I'll go back to that in a minute. So what have you learned along the way? I mean, obviously you mentioned about resilience, kind of mindset and stuff, but
Mm.
what are the other things that you've kind of learned?
I've learned so many things. I think some of the key things would be the power of collaboration. Like,
Wow.
many people look at me and they say, "Oh, you're so amazing. You've achieved so many great things." I guess that is true, but I would never have been able to do it alone. Having people who support you, people who mentor you, people who even just encourage you and show you love in the moments when you're struggling. Having that community is absolutely integral, and I think sometimes we underestimate the power of tapping into the people around us and really using them as resources to help us drive something forward. And oftentimes people are very much willing to help when they can see that what you're doing is not for selfish means. So, for example, I never would have been able to co-found a charity while at medical school if I didn't have people guiding and leading me, because I didn't know how to set up a charity. So I went to a mentor who had, and I learned in that sense. I think other things I've learned about, is the importance of humility. I
Wow.
think when you walk in humility and your mindset for doing something is to offer value and to serve people rather than to always be receiving things, that allows you to progress. So when I started my journey, I had no idea that I would meet the Queen, and I wasn't like, I'm going to set up this charity so I can get an award. my mindset was that I spot an issue and I want to make a difference here. I want to add value. I want to create positive change. And because that was my driving force and that was my focus, it allowed me to be good at what I was doing because I was genuinely so passionate about that. And through that, I received multiple awards. The one from the Queen was just, the one that would be most highly regarded. Um, and when that is happening, again, it's important that you remain humble and that you focus on what the purpose is, because it's very easy to start getting distracted by awards or media opportunities, when really that's not what it's about. Yeah, that's a byproduct and that's really helpful for amplifying a message, but I have to stay focused on the core and on the message, because when you start to get distracted by all of those kind of things, you'll realize that your impact drops because you're no longer focused on what's important, so you can't be as effective as you would otherwise be. I can go on and on with all the things I've learned.
It's so beautiful. God, my life. I mean, just something so young, you're just so wise. Would you can you take over as Prime Minister, please? No stress. Seriously, we want somebody with your integrity and honesty and kind of drive. I mean, I will vote for you. You get my vote, like now and forever. So what and who has helped you kind of along the way? Because I mean, not all of your life has been plain sailing, that's for sure.
No, of course not.
What and who has kind of helped you?
Yeah. I think my faith probably has been a fundamental thing, because one of the things I realized along my journey is that it doesn't matter how much confidence other people have or how much potential other people see in you. If you don't believe in that yourself, then you're not going to be able to achieve great things, because you're the person that has to put in the work. You're the person that has to show up. We live in a society where we have to sell ourselves. You go into an interview, you're applying for a job and you have to sell why you should be the ideal candidate. And indeed, pursuing something like a medical career is very competitive, and it involves interviews, it involves personal statements, it involves being able to sell yourself. And you'll notice that many of the students I work with who come from underrepresented backgrounds, they struggle with that aspect, that self-confidence, that ability to articulate themselves. And along my journey, my self-esteem was something that I definitely struggled with. I would sometimes think, how can I truly believe I can achieve my dreams? Like, who around me on this council estate, who is actually living the kind of life I envision? So how do I know it can happen for me?
Wow.
Um, and so I used to struggle a lot, but my faith played such a powerful role, because it helped me to understand that my identity is not based on the projections and stereotypes people may try to put on me, but rather, I'm I believe all humans are very valuable, irrespective of our background. I've got special gifts and talents that God has given me, and it's my responsibility to cultivate and develop that. And so, through my faith, I started to realize that actually I'm in control of my destiny. I can change the script. I can become what I believe in my heart I should be, rather than what people try to tell me I should be, whether that's through spoken word or even just through sometimes people's energies or how they may respond in their body language if you tell them that you have a dream for something. So that played a huge role. And also just having wonderful mentors, people who believe in me. And my first powerful mentor was my sister. When I told her I wanted to be a doctor, she didn't doubt me for a second. She was the
Wow.
person that suggested I apply for a bursary. She used to
Wow.
even come to my what do you call it? My when you're at school and you have the teacher days. I forgot the name of it.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she
yeah.
used to come to those. And, once she said to me that even if you got all D's in your A levels, I know you would become a doctor, even if you had to take a long route. And being able to have somebody who can look you in the face and say that, and that they mean it with all their heart, that kind of faith lifts you up when you're struggling and doubting yourself. So, yeah, I feel like I'm a product of so many people's investments in me.
So lovely. It's really lovely. So what obstacles have you kind of encountered along the way that have been
Mm.
really kind of tough where you got to sort of dig in?
Yeah. I think the most challenging obstacle was when I got rejected from every medical school that I had applied to. That
Wow.
was really painful because, I was on a bursary. I was the first recipient of a bursary called the A Better Chance Bursary, which was specifically for a student who wanted to study medicine. And
Wow.
so I had been taken from my normal environment and placed in a boarding school, receiving an education that was worth about £50,000. And although nobody put overt pressure on me, I felt like the purpose of me being here is to get into medical school. So when I got rejected, I just thought, oh my God, like, what am I going to do with my life? I did have the plan that I would reapply to medical school and take a gap year. But after my maths exam, and maths is like, if you've got the answer or you haven't. It's not like history where you can waffle a bit and try to act like you know what you're speaking about. So after that exam, for the first time in my life, I cried and I thought, oh my God, what is actually going to happen? Um, but thanks be to God, like I took a gap year, I managed to get the grades and I reapplied. But working through the emotions during that period of waiting for my exam results and not knowing what was going to happen, it was really challenging, especially because when you're that age, the way you perceive life can be quite small. So
Yeah.
I felt like my whole world was tied up in getting a medical offer. I couldn't see anything else. And so that was really struggling for me. It's really challenging for me. And I think something just along the way, which it hasn't triggered such a huge emotional response like a rejection, but nonetheless, it was still a challenge that kind of affected me was, um, you know, dealing with people's stereotypes, people's negative perceptions, people's limited thoughts. People sometimes project their insecurities on you. And because I'm somebody that's had so many different experiences, I went through a phase in my like early 20s or late teens when I felt like I really didn't fit in anywhere. Like back in my church, for example, which formed a big part of my journey during sixth form, they would see me as the posh girl. But then at boarding school, I was seen as the person from South London. So it's like I had to form my own identity because I felt like I didn't fit into anybody's boxes. So being at one with that was a challenging process to go through. It makes you dig deep and ask yourself, who am I? What makes me? Is it my background? Is it my heritage? What is it? And asking yourself those deep questions can be challenging, but it's so powerful because when you start to find answers to them, it gives you such a self-assurance and such a security that gives you not a superficial confidence, but a true one that comes from deep within.
Wow. But when you went to boarding school, because was that in Mill Hill? Is that right?
Yeah, Mill
Yeah.
Hill.
But that's quite a long way, isn't it, from kind of Peckham? And I know you went to boarding school, but that must have been really different because
It
that's a
was very
really
different.
alien environment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It was really, really, really different. I think I didn't know what to expect because obviously I didn't know anybody that had ever been to boarding school, only what I've seen in films and stuff. And I remember some of my teachers at my secondary school were like, "Oh, now you're going to the other side of life." But I didn't know what they meant by that until I got to boarding school and I said, "Ah." But I think it was such a wonderful experience for me. It did have its challenges. Um But overall, I think it prepared me really well for med school, in that it kind of bridged what could have been a culture shock, and it helped me to because I struggled a lot during that time with my identity. It helped me to come to terms with my identity such that I was able to develop a confidence to really believe in myself, which is what gave me the confidence to say, I'm going to co found a charity at medical school, or I'm going to do things that are not the norm for medical students, because I don't need to fit into anybody's box. I need to do what's in my heart. And so, yeah, I think the process of boarding school definitely prepared me. It also was powerful because, I was in an environment where students were mainly coming from very wealthy backgrounds, very successful backgrounds. And so success was normal to them. And I remember they had a lecture series where some of the lecturers would be internationally renowned people. And I never forget, there was a lecturer called Derek Yellen, who's like a world famous cardiologist, and he was talking about some new research he was doing that could delay the death of cardiac heart tissue. And I just remember being so fascinated, thinking, wow, I too could be internationally renowned for something.
Wow.
So having those kind of experiences, or even having a swimming pool on site and being able to swim or to run around in these beautiful fields, it was a wonderful experience. It had its challenges, but it was amazing at the same time.
Wow. 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 So if you could go back to you at 15 or 10, what advice would you give the younger self?
I say this, but I don't know if I would have listened to myself. I think I would have told myself just to trust the process.
Wow.
Trust the process. And I would have told myself that, you're good enough. You don't have to try to prove yourself. You're not defined by your achievements or defined by the things that people may celebrate you for, because, humans are very fickle. The same people that celebrate you for achieving things are the same people that can cast you down. So you can't be dependent on other people's acknowledgement or approval of you. You have to approve of yourself. And so I would have kind of given myself that kind of inspirational talk.
That's so cool. Wow, that's brilliant. That's so, so cool. And what legacy would you love to leave? I mean, I know you're young and that's just so beautiful,
Mm.
but what legacy would you like to leave behind or pass on
Yeah.
to others?
In all honesty, I'm so blessed to be able to say that I know I've already started a legacy.
Mm,
And that is such a humbling thought for me, to know that I've already been able to start my legacy.
yeah,
But the continued legacy I hope to leave behind is one that echoes the message that, as I said, no matter what background you come from, no matter what your starting point is in life, you can achieve great things. You can manifest the dreams and the visions that you have in your heart. But it starts with you believing that. It starts with you transforming your mind. It starts with you recognizing and understanding that you can choose to be a victim of the things that happen to you, or you can choose to rise up and not have a pity party, but take responsibility and say, I can't change what happened yesterday, but I can change the decisions that I make today and tomorrow. And in doing so, I can create something powerful and something beautiful.
that's so amazing. So
Mm,
how do you see, I mean, you mentioned about, everyone's kind of unique and has got a gift and stuff, but we see it as everyone's got magic inside them and sometimes
mm,
we just need to kind of find that.
yeah.
So for you, how do you see the magic in yourself? I mean, what do you see as kind of Leanne's magic?
Um, Can you rephrase that so I make sure I don't go on a total tangent? Could you ask me in another way?
Yeah, of course. So if you had a magic power, what would it be? What do you think you've got?
I think I think it would probably be my ability to connect with people, which then allows me to empower them. Because I think, you can see someone who says a lot of interesting and inspirational things, and you can think, oh, yeah, that's great for you. But when you can actually relate to somebody and they can connect with you on a very human level, you're then able to actually make them believe it's possible for themselves. And I find it quite fascinating because I see that when I interact with patients, I see that when I'm on stages speaking, I see that in in all areas of my life, which shows me that it's actually who I am rather than something I put on in different places. Obviously, it's developed over time as I've matured, but it is who I am.
And do you find like with because that's really interesting you bringing up patience, that's really cool. Because do you feel that you can relate to almost everybody?
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because I was having a discussion with one of the senior hematologists, so blood doctors at my hospital yesterday. And I was telling him that, I had a consultation with a patient who said in her 20 years of interacting with mental health services, this is the first time she truly felt listened to. And, she was really pleased with the treatment she had received. And he was even saying that kind of shows your ability to relate to people and to all people. And I definitely agree with you. I think I do have that ability. And I think it is also because I've had so many different experiences. I've interacted with prime ministers, I've interacted with, very successful people. And equally, I've interacted with the people in society that are overlooked or people don't really regard. And because I see myself as somebody that has come from very humble backgrounds, like one of my favorite scriptures is that God uses the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And I see myself as that, because even though people will say, you're so intelligent, you're so this, you're so that, it's not that I don't. I mean, I know I am. I have to, like, I knew I had to be a bit intelligent to become a doctor, right? Just a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah,
But
definitely.
I don't really see, I don't know how to describe it. I guess it's what keeps me humble as well. It's like I don't see myself as that. I see myself as that scripture, a foolish thing of this world being used to confound the wise. Um, Sorry, I've even forgotten what your question was. I went on a tangent.
Keep going. It's just so beautiful. It's just so lovely to listen to. It really is.
Yeah, so
But do you find like when you're in kind of hospital and explain the rotation thing about the psychiatric
yeah.
rotation for
Yeah. So as a junior doctor, the idea is that they want to give you a good grounding in medicine
okay.
as a whole. And so because of that, over a 2-year period, you rotate between 6 specialties. Specialties being specific areas of medicine, because medicine is very broad, it's very huge. And so different areas you need to have specialists of different areas. So as a junior doctor, I've rotated in cardiology, which is medicine linked to the heart. I've rotated in obstetrics and gynecology, which is pregnant women and women's health in general. I've rotated in the emergency department, in the trauma and orthopedic department, and currently I'm in the psychiatry department.
And of all of those so far, what have you kind of have you got any kind of fondness for any of them or?
In all honesty, what I thought I wanted to do, I'm like, no way, I don't want to do that. So now I'm not sure. Part of me thinks maybe anesthetics, which I haven't rotated in, and I don't have a rotation in that. And anesthetics is lots to do with airway management. They're the doctors that put you to sleep if you need an operation. I'm thinking perhaps that, but I'm not certain, to be honest.
Wow, wow. And why did you choose Brighton?
So I didn't actually choose it. What happens as a junior doctor is, or in your final year of medical school, you rank jobs and you literally have like 360 jobs to rank, which, whilst you're trying to do exams, a task like that, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So I ranked it based on not being too far from London and definitely having a rotation of emergency department or A&E and trauma and orthopedics. Because initially, remember, I thought I wanted to be a trauma and orthopedic surgeon. So yeah, I literally just ranked it based on those two factors, and your grades have a massive bearing on how high up of your choices that you get that you want. And so I wound up being in Brighton for my second year, which is great for me. I'm really enjoying it down here in Brighton.
So nice. And in terms of kind of plans for the future, once you've done that kind of junior doctor position, what next? I mean, where do you see the
Yeah.
next 5, 10 years?
So what's really interesting about me is that I'm developing a portfolio career at the beginning.
Mm,
Many doctors, it's when they become consultants that they start joining boards of huge charities or other things like that. But I'm doing all that stuff now.
wow.
Because that's what I believe is what I'm supposed to do. That's what makes me very passionate. So what
Mm,
I need to do is I need to figure out a medical specialty that will allow me to continue doing all the other things. Um, and the other things include, so I've got my own charity, which I've spoken about, that of course I'll be committed to growing and developing. I also recently joined the board of Anthony Nolan, which is a huge medical charity that saves the life of people with blood cancer. So I'll be doing that at least for the next 3 years. I'll also continue my public speaking. As I mentioned, I'm a soon-to-be book author, and with that, I'll be able to start doing seminars and workshops that are linked to some of the strategies in my book. That's the vision that I have for what I want to do, and I'll continue with my public speaking and just continue it as I feel led. But yeah, I just love to do the things I'm passionate about because that gives me the energy to manage everything. Because everybody already thinks my schedule is crazy.
It is. I mean, just being a junior doctor for one, but then add on the public speaking and the book and everything else. I mean, have you found the secret to inventing more than 24 hours a day, Leanne? Because if you have, could you just share?
I think goes back to my initial point about collaboration. You know, having a team of people, it sounds like a simple thing, but it's not a simple thing. When you've got the right people with the right skills who have the same passion and the same commitment and energy, you'll find that you're able to be so effective because you're working with people who are aligned with the same kind of vision, the same kind of ethos, the same kind of mindset. So, like my charity, I co founded it with a gentleman called Daniel Huth, who is like the male version of me that's not medical. He's more got a strategic brain. But he and I have like the same kind of we're very aligned in terms of our principles and our vision, and we're both perfectionists, and maybe people would say workaholics, but I don't like that because that's got a negative
Yeah,
connotation, and
yeah.
we enjoy what we do. So being aligned with him, there's no way I would have been able to get the charity to where it is without him, because his skill set perfectly complemented mine. And of course we had disagreements because even though we're very similar, we function very differently. Like, I like to have things done months in advance. Daniel, he works well under pressure, so he will say things for last minute, and that would drive me crazy. And I'm really focused on small details, but Daniel focuses on the bigger picture. So when he wouldn't respond to emails that I thought were really important, I'd get so annoyed. But through that relationship, it has taught us both so much. And of course, we've worked through our differences and we've reasoned and stuff, but through being able to be connected to people who are very skilled at what they do and who have a similar vision, a similar ethos, and we all have a similar work ethic, that is what has helped me to build many of the things I have. Even with our charity, we have a staff member called Adila who's phenomenal, and she has really helped things to progress, especially when I became a doctor. She's very in tune and she's so passionate. So I will message Adila on a Sunday at like 8 p.m. and she'll get back to me. And because she understands that Daniel and I are so busy, she's willing to be flexible with that. And, it may sound a bit corny, but we love each other. So it's
No, I
like
get
we're a
it.
family.
No, I get it.
And because of that love, it's like it makes it not just a job or not just work, but we kind of feel like we're working towards a mission together. So having many people like that in my life has helped. And if I'm honest, it is partly my character as well. I am very motivated and I am very driven. And I think I also have, I don't know how to describe it, but so if for example there's an email that I need to send, it weighs in my mind. So even though only 2 days has passed, in my mind it's like, oh my god, it's been a week and I haven't sent that email. So I just find time to just do the little things that need to be done. I try to be efficient with time, and I try to cut out distractions. And distractions is not just TV. Distractions are toxic people, any kind of negative influence that can steal your energy and prevent you from being focused. And I think that is such an important point, because when it comes to trying to achieve success, many people focus on practical strategies, but they don't also focus on inner healing, soul healing, understanding the areas of your life that cause you pain and cause you hurt, where you're carrying resentment or unforgiveness, and dealing with those issues because they weigh you down. If somebody, or you've got a relationship in your life that's causing you a lot of stress, how are you going to focus when your mind is partly distracted by all of that stuff? So focusing on also having that inner healing and having a healthy soul, I think that's really important. And that helps me to move forward as well. And when you're used to living in that kind of state, you can very quickly identify when someone or something is triggering you in a negative way, which
Mhm.
helps you to know that I need to step away from that. And just having that boldness and that zero tolerance attitude for toxicity and negativity as well, it helps.
That's so cool. So, how do you relax?
Yeah, so I love to exercise. I'm an avid gym goer. I also love dancing, which
Wow.
if there was a camera in my flat, you would just see me busting out some random moves in the kitchen, in the living room. I like to be around friends. Yeah, like what any other young person does, going to the movies, etc. I don't really go clubbing. I love dancing and I love partying, but I'm not really a clubber. I'm a bit of a granny. Like, I like to go to bed by 11 p.m.
Oh,
and wake up early.
that's not a granny. I'm in bed by 9, me. That's so cool. And if you were to use one word to describe yourself, what word would that be?
It would have to be very energetic. One word, energetic. I wanted to use a different word, but that was a word that popped to my mind because that's what everybody says, and I think it is true that I am very energetic. I have a lot of energy.
I would definitely, yeah, I've just written that down and could have put a box around it and done a tick. It's got definitely. That's so wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to add for people who are listening? It's
um,
been amazing talking to you. You are this absolute ball of positive energy. It's wonderful, and everything that I wrote, I read about you is just so true. It's just you are a wonderful, beautiful person. You really are.
Thank you. That's really lovely of you, Sid. Any lasting words that I'd share with people? I think what I'd say is that sometimes it's very easy to kind of what I said earlier to look at somebody who you greatly admire and to think that they're superhuman or there's something about them that has allowed them to be successful. And society kind of reinforces this because we celebrate people for their successes, but successful people often say, if I showed you a CV of all my failures, that would far outweigh my successes. So I think the first thing I'd say is stop thinking that people who've achieved the kind of things that you would love to see yourself doing are supernatural or superhuman or have these extra abilities. They don't. They just have focus, they have drive, and they are following certain principles. Life is all about principles. You know, when you can learn to identify what principles are going to allow you to achieve success and you start to walk in those principles and you're committed to them, you will see your life will change. Because as humans, we're a product of our daily habits. And when we can start to align our habits with our goals for the future and are guided by the right principles, you will notice that you'll start to achieve many of the things that you may have on your to-do list. And there was one other thing I was going to say that has jumped out of my mind. Oh, that's so, I hate it when that happens.
I know, and and I'm glad to hear that it happens for somebody of your age because it certainly happens for me quite a lot. And I was on a team call earlier, and somebody's like, "Oh, my life! I've just completely forgotten what I was just about to say." So we had a bit of a giggle. But you are a really amazing person. You really are, and
Thank
you know
you.
your background, what you've been through, and it's just incredible. I mean, I can
Mm,
only thank you, you know, for sharing this time with me.
thank
And
you for having me.
oh, you're very welcome. We'll let you know when it's live. And
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, Dr. Leanne Armitage. I love that Dr. Leanne Armitage. It's just like, whoa, isn't it? What do you think? Like Dr. Florence Nightingale is kind of like, whoa. Well, Nurse Florence Nightingale, obviously, but absolutely fantastic. Seriously, honestly, I can't thank you enough. It's just so lovely to have met you. And thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Great to meet you too, Sid.
All right, you take care.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I will do, and you do too. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye bye.